Welcome to the Supernatural Souls podcast. I'm Jenna, your host. I'm also a former global vice president for Whole Foods Market and the founder of Star Family Wisdom, a modern-day mystery school for your spiritual and cosmic evolution. On this podcast, we explore the lives, teachings, and energies of a very specific group of supernatural souls. In this group, we include Jesus Christ and Mother Mary from the Christian tradition, and also Saint Sri Kaleshwar and Shirdi Sai Baba from India. Here we discover a body of knowledge and wisdom that transcends religion, uniting the East and West. Together we'll discuss the practices that were once employed by these ancient masters to embody the high supernatural abilities that were once considered magic, and we'll welcome the energy, love, and wisdom of these supernatural souls into our lives. So as we explore the lives and wisdom of these supernatural souls and their students, may we all remember ourselves as supernatural souls and embody the wisdom and teachings of the many masters who have walked before us. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. It's so good to be here with you today. I'm Jenna, your host. And before we go further with the Supernatural Souls podcast, before we go further with discussions around the divine lineage and the ancient practices of Yeshua and the Holy Family and the masters who came before him and came after him, I thought it might be important and helpful for us to have a little get to know you conversation. I've shared aspects of my journey on the Star Family Wisdom podcast, and that is strung out over the course of the last few years. And this has been a profound journey of transformation and activating more of my soul memories to be able to do the work that I'm doing now. And I'm starting to connect with so many new people, and it's been so beautiful and awesome. And I'm so grateful to meet all of you and know you and be a support system for you. And I thought it would just be good to highlight a few aspects of my exploration so that you have a better, fuller picture of who I am on a soul level. And I'm going to play in this episode today some clips of my very first regression that I went through. And this idea came after having a conversation with another person in the Divine Lineage. For those who are like, what's the Divine Lineage? What's she talking about? That is the lineage of Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and the many masters who have preserved important spiritual technologies and practices on this planet as we've been moving through the Kali Yuga. These practices, this wisdom dates back thousands and thousands of years ago, and we've gone through an era of darkness. We've gone through an era of forgetfulness as humans. Humanity had a fall. So after the last fall of humanity, much wisdom was lost. Wisdom was scattered across the globe, and there's been an effort to bring that wisdom back. And Swami Sri Kaleshwar, Saint Sri Kaleshwar from India, played an incredibly important role in bringing forth some of that lost knowledge and the lost spiritual practices of Yeshua. And Swami's master, Shirdi Sai Baba, also of India, helped him in the process of identifying the wisdom, the knowledges, the practices that lead one to embodying high divine states, high supernatural states, states of consciousness that are normal for humans, that were normal before we went through this fall and before we went through our era of darkness. And now we're working our way out of that. So the divine lineage is a really important spiritual lineage on this planet. It is not the only important spiritual lineage on this planet. As I said, wisdom has been scattered across the globe. So what we're doing now, I think, as humans, is piecing that puzzle back together. And Swami Sri Kaleshwar has a huge piece of that puzzle. And so the divine lineage, when I refer to that, that is talking about the lineage of Swami Sri Kaleshwar, Jesus Christ, Shirdi Sai Baba, other masters, which we'll talk about eventually, and the set of practices, the body of knowledge that brings one into full communion with God and brings one back into wholeness. So I've been engaging the Divine Lineage over the last year, and this came after a period of intense spiritual practice and accessing my own soul memories and doing work to piece that puzzle back together for myself. And I was talking with someone in the Divine Lineage just recently, and this person wanted to hear more of my story and kind of the full story, because I've shared bits and pieces of it. It's becoming known that I'm reaching certain levels of consciousness that are allowing me to remember more, that are allowing me to experience divine possibilities, and allowing me to have the personal experience of what humans have referred to as magic, as these miraculous occurrences, these supernatural occurrences that really are actually more of the natural order of the universe than humans have realized in recent times. So this person was wanting to learn more about my full story and how I got here and what I'm doing. and a few of you have also asked about whether I've remembered any anything related to the time of Jesus, and what my soul level connection is there. And so I thought today we'll talk a little bit about where my soul has been, what my soul has done, and some of the things I have remembered. And playing a few of these clips from my very first regression is going to take us back to some of the earlier exploration that I've done to understand more about my soul. These clips are from a regression in 2020. That's when a lot of supernatural experiences had finally culminated to the point where I needed help. I needed help reaching a deeper state of trance, a deeper meditative state, so that I could access more memories. I had been having spontaneous past life recall, some bits and pieces of it up until that point, and I had been experiencing future visions that would play out. I was seeing the future at times. I was recognizing I had a claircognizance. I would just know things that I shouldn't know at times. And I started to have some very profound experiences related to information about ETs. So at some point we'll document like all of this for anyone who's curious and wants to learn more of the details about what led to this regression. But I guess the big part of the story that's helpful to know is that as I was going through this very fast progression of spiritual awakening and connecting dots across information, past life information, near-death experience information, starting to study some of the mysteries and just getting a better sense of the fact that I had a soul, and starting to access some of my own memories, and that blowing my mind at the time in this human body, and asking more of those questions. More of those questions led me to some books, some material about regression cases, because I had been interested in past life regression because of some of the spontaneous past life memories I had already accessed. And so in this exploration of regression and what that's about and what people have accessed, I stumbled upon some books about ETs. And as I started reading this one particular book that's I think important to know about, and if this all interests you, you can go over to the Star Family Wisdom podcast and check out some of the previous earlier episodes which cover some of this information, and where we interviewed and talked to different people who are more familiar with the galactic component of our reality here on Earth. So I stumbled upon a book by John Mack. John Mack was a Harvard professor of psychiatry for many years, and in his tenure, in his later years, he had some freedom to explore what he wanted to explore. And someone asked him to connect with a person who had been having a lot of trouble because this person was suspecting that they were an abductee of aliens, like aliens had abducted them, and there were a number of cases where people were having these very strange memories or strange experiences that couldn't be explained, and strange trauma that was coming up related to those. And so being someone who was very skilled in psychiatry practices, he knew how to put someone into a regressed state, which is basically getting someone into a really deep state of meditative trance. And so for people who maybe aren't as practiced in meditation on their own, working with a therapist who can help you get in that deep state of hypnosis and trance helps you access soul memories. And so he did this with a few of these anomalous cases. I started reading a book about this, his book that he wrote, because I was like curious, oddly enough. And I was a little nervous, like, what's going on with this ET thing? I was seeing stuff about UFOs and then this, and I was like, what is happening here? Like, this world's crazy enough. And so I start reading his book, and within the very first chapter, the very first case he's documenting of this person, he's regressing, and then the findings, like what's coming out of this person, which was a very real experience of this person having had interaction with non-human intelligences, and that being something so far outside of what human consciousness could understand and integrate that it caused trauma at the time. And this has been true for many people. This understanding, what I'm talking about right now, is part of our awakening process. So I'm reading this book, and in the first chapter, I start having the most profound emotional release of my life. And it was really startling, actually, at the time, because I had been raised atheist. I had been raised very kind of separate from our spiritual reality. I, did not have much of a chance in my younger years to connect with that, to connect the dots on any aspect of our spiritual reality. I was always a little more advanced in my younger years. I became a global vice president of a Fortune 500 company by the age of 30 without a college degree. Like I've moved through life in a somewhat advanced way and never quite knew why. And then when this happened, I knew enough about the science of the mind at the time, and I had learned just enough about regression to recognize that sometimes when we have huge emotional releases after we've connected with a certain piece of information, our soul is telling us something. We have some sort of suppressed memory, suppressed information that is trying to come out, that is trying to be made known, to our system. And that's what was happening. I was receiving a huge wake-up call telling me that my soul had a connection to ETs. And there was a big, big, big amount of suppressed information that was trying to come out. So when that happened, because I had been raised atheist, and because I, at that point was still integrating spiritual knowledge and spiritual understanding and progressing in my spiritual awakening, I was scared, because most of what we have heard about abduction cases or ET, quote unquote, ET contact has been, with like a negative kind of angle. Like we've heard scary things about that, and we're clearly very closed off to that idea of these other, civilizations or other realities out there that we might be able to connect with. And so because we are so closed off from that here on Earth, that has created a situation where humans have fear. And we also have a compounding issue on this planet of all of the negativity, violence, trauma, fear-based programming that has occurred that wires us for this just extreme amount of fear anyway. And then you layer on top of that this idea of, from a human standpoint, the potential of other life out there and it being scary, right? So that's where I was when this really started to happen. And yet I knew that my soul had information related to this that I needed to access. And so I knew I needed to go through a regression. But I was really nervous. I was really nervous because I was just getting to the point in my meditation practice where it would probably be possible for me to get regressed. But I was still working, on getting into meditative states and relaxing and releasing fear and, all of that programming that we, take on. And a lot of that programming prevents, some of these higher level pieces of information or soul memories from coming through, because the information we're going to access is so counter to what we have been taught or programmed to believe is true here on Earth. So here's what happened. I put it off for a little while because I was nervous. And then a really interesting contact scenario happened. I talk about this in some of the very earlier Star Family Wisdom podcast episodes. I was continuing to do a little research on this topic before feeling totally comfortable going through a regression. And I had stumbled upon a guy named Daryl Anka who claimed to channel an ET being named Bashar. So this guy named Bashar would talk through him. And I started to watch a few of these videos and I was like, that's interesting. Like some of what he's saying, seems pretty high level, seems to connect some dots, but come on. I was so skeptical. Healthy skepticism is good. We're dealing with a lot of human ego. We're dealing with human brains that have been traumatized. Anytime information is coming through a human, it is only as good as how healed that human is. And anyway, I was skeptical. So I'm watching this documentary, and about halfway through, I'm very intrigued, but I'm skeptical. And I'm at this point, I'm, a VP at Whole Foods. I've got big responsibilities, and I'm like, I need to just turn this off and go to bed for the night. I need to do dinner and all that. And so I just decide I'm turning this off. I don't have time for this. I'd ordered dinner for delivery that night. Within seconds of turning off the documentary, I get a pop-up on my phone that says your food has been delivered by Bashar, the being in the documentary, the ET being. And I immediately am like, excuse me? Hello? Bashar, are you out there? What's happening? Are you talking to me? And so I laughed. Like I had this moment of just like astonishment and I laughed and I was like, okay, things are getting weird, because there were a lot of other situations. We're not going to talk about all of the details in this one. At some point, maybe I'll release some other interviews where I go into more detail. But there had been so many moments, synchronicities, emotional releases, supernatural things like this that were pointing to the fact that I had some sort of connection that had to be explored. And then this happened. And I laughed and I thought, okay, so I'm nervous, but if all of this is real, so far it's benevolent. So far it's been helpful. So far I've been getting guidance, and we're going to listen to that in the clip of the regression. We're going to talk about some of the guidance I've received. And so if everything I've been learning is true, and if I have a connection to these beings, and if they're talking to me and guiding me, so far it's benevolent and so far it's helpful, and nothing about it seems to be guiding me in a direction that would be to my detriment. So I guess I can trust this. And I think with any knowledge, any information, any interdimensional information we're connecting with, that's the barometer, right? Is this leading us towards love, or is this leading us towards separation? And this was leading me towards love. So I just knew intuitively it's okay. I can trust this. I'm gonna go ahead and trust this. And so I went through the regression. And so this is not the entire regression. These are some clips that came from the latter half of the regression. At the beginning of the regression, a QHHT therapist named Carl Marshall, he's in Texas. If you want to check him out, his info is below. This was when I was living in Austin. He guided me to past lives, and in a quantum healing hypnosis technique regression, which is what this was, the therapist, and I'm also trained in this technique, by the way, so I understand at a deeper level, like how this all works. So basically everything I've done or explored, I have sought training and certification in so that I could make sure I felt really confident, in how this all operates. So anyway, I'm going through this regression with Carl, and at the beginning, the QHHT therapist will guide your subconscious. They use the term subconscious, that links to our higher self, our soul. And the therapist guides the subconscious to access an important lifetime, access a time that's important to me now in this lifetime. We access 2 lifetimes. And I haven't talked about these here yet, so I'll talk about these briefly, and then we'll listen to the clips, and then I'll talk a little bit about the clips as we go to just bring some context to the conversation. So the first 2 lifetimes I accessed, one was in ancient Egypt, and it was so fascinating, like having this experience. And I was observing it. I was not in it in this one. I've had both experiences in various states of meditation or regression where all of a sudden I'm experiencing it as that person I was. And I've had experiences where I'm just observing it. So I can see the scene, I can see what's playing out. I know that's me. But I'm seeing it from a more of an observation standpoint. And that's what was happening here for most of it. In some of these explorations, I've had the experience of both, where it might start out as me being in the experience, reliving it fully, and then the therapist guiding, or myself guiding myself to an observer standpoint, which is good. If trauma is happening, we want to observe it. We don't want to relive it. So in this instance, I was working at the Library of Alexandria. I actually just read another book by Dolores Cannon that I'm going to review on the Star Family Wisdom podcast. It's called Horns of the Goddess, and it's about ancient Druid culture and some of the spiritual practice that happened over 1,000 years ago in England. In that book, she actually references one of her past lives she accessed. And I think we actually share this past life, which is really interesting. So in this past life, I worked at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. I was not anyone quote unquote important or that special, in this life. Like if you think of human hierarchy and how we place importance on roles and that sort of thing, this was just a basic job. Like I was a messenger boy. I took like scrolls and letters and stuff back and forth between the library and other important people in town. So I was in the library a lot, but I was also, doing this messenger, duty and delivering things around town. So it was a pretty basic life. I was not a very educated person in that life. And other than just kind of absorbing, some of the like conversation in the library, or just absorbing the like importance of knowledge and wisdom because I was around it, but I wasn't studying it in that lifetime. And then I watched the library burn. I was there for the burning. And oh my gosh, when this happened in the regression, this actually explained some issues I had been having around books, and like this kind of hoarding kind of feeling that had started to develop around spiritual wisdom, especially like I have to preserve that and I have to save that book, and all these strange, kind of distorted, feelings were coming up. And that's why, because I had had this trauma of experiencing the library getting lost, and all that wisdom with it. So that was wild to watch that. Um, and so that was like the big lesson in that lifetime, was about the importance of wisdom and knowledge. And then the second lifetime we accessed was in ancient Greece, and I was playing some sort of role as a mystery school leader in the Eleusinian mystery schools. I was a female, I was a woman, so that would have been back when there was more of a priestess culture involved. And so I was like leading groups of priestesses in spiritual practice and understanding the mysteries. And that ties to some of what I'm doing today with Star Family Wisdom, just in a more modern way. Isn't it funny how these, lifetimes all connect? They really all do. It's so fascinating. And so then after I'm having the experience of observing these lifetimes, gaining some bits and pieces of information, then the therapist guides you in a way where the therapist asks to speak directly to your subconscious, basically speaking directly to your higher self to pull more information forward. So that's what these clips are. These are not the past life part of the session, but the part of the session where the therapist is starting to just ask questions to get more information and see what comes through, see what my higher self will reveal. And I had mentioned, part of this was prompted by my desire to explore our connection with ETs, and specifically my connection with ETs, and what was going on there, what that was about. And so you hear some of that in these clips. In these clips, we talk about what I'm doing here in this life. We talk about some of the earliest information I was gathering around that connection, and then they started to talk through me. So if you're wondering why Star Family Wisdom is called Star Family Wisdom, it's because all of the wisdom that I have been connecting with, sharing, discussing, integrating has been guided by my star family. My star family are souls that I have a bond with. They're some of them are part of my immediate soul group. We all have an immediate soul group we incarnate with every time we incarnate, most of the time. For most souls here on Earth, most of them are incarnated with their whole soul group right now. That whole soul group is here on Earth. You're doing life lessons together over and over and over. In this life, some of my soul group are out there, which has facilitated this connection and the ability for us to communicate at times. This also has been a process of me understanding my ET past lives and the other lifetimes I've had out in the galaxy, and the fact that I'm not necessarily a quote unquote normal earth-based soul. When souls start incarnating in the physical, we come into these lower dimensional, third dimensional experiences of separation, which is what's happening here on Earth. And we might kind of be assigned to a particular planet, and we might, incarnate on that planet for like lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes to let lessons play out before we move on to other experiences. So a lot of souls on Earth have had that experience of Earth kind of being their place, where they're incarnating. Earth has not been my place. I'm visiting for a while. So my soul has had more experiences elsewhere in this universe. My soul is more familiar with other civilizations. And I have been incarnating on Earth for a series of lifetimes for some of what we'll learn about in these clips. So I'm now going to share my screen, and we'll start to listen to the clips here. Okay. So this one is called The Creator versus Our Creators.
Is there a particular mission that she is supposed to accomplish in this life?
To bring back the knowledge.
What knowledge is she supposed to bring back?
Some of what was lost. And to help share.
What knowledge was that?
The knowledge of who we are and where we came from.
Who are we and where did we come from?
We are all divine, but we once were greater. This is not who we are.
Where did we come from?
We came from the stars.
Say again?
We came from the stars.
Which stars do we come from?
So many of them.
Okay, so no one in particular star, is that correct?
Mm-mm.
Okay, but you said we're all divine, is that correct? How are we divine?
We are all from the same source, and we are all part of this creation. But there's been a misunderstanding.
What was the misunderstanding?
There's been a misunderstanding about our creators versus the creator, and there's fear about that, and we don't need to be fearful.
What are we fearful of?
We're fearful of not being powerful and not being the greatest, because we were once greater, but we just haven't known.
Okay.
But we're ready now.
Okay. So let's talk for just a moment about what's going on there before we move on to the next one. So my higher self is starting to reveal information about a misunderstanding. This misunderstanding has been perpetuated by many of the religions on this planet. Our ancient texts are a mishmash of historical narrative, historical context, spiritual teaching, metaphor, and some of that historical context includes ET contact. It is my understanding and my memory that the gods and goddesses of ancient times, which have continued to be revered until this day, were actually powerful beings that were interacting with humans after the fall. Now, there have been many eras of human civilization. There have been eras of civilization we don't have record of and that we don't remember, because Earth has gone through a number of catastrophes. After the last fall, humans were in, and have continued to be until this day, a very limited state of being. And in that very limited state of being, if a human is interacting with a much, much, much more powerful being that is almost in their full godlike power, humans have associated them with being gods. Humans did not know better. Humans didn't know what else to to think of them as. Humans did not have the capacity fully to recognize that they were also of this creation, that there was a much, grander design at play, that there is a creator of this entire universe, but that those beings were not it. So there's been a misunderstanding. And humans are a product of genetic manipulation. Not necessarily in a super negative way initially. There, you can think of this universe as as hierarchies of beings, that there are civilizations and beings out there that are so advanced spiritually and scientifically that they have been given permission by the divine to be part of the creation process. And we are all technically part of the creation process. We are all creating all the time. However, there are advanced beings out there that are more capable of developing intelligent life, of supporting that process in this universe. That is not a bad thing. That is part of the creation process. It could be a negative thing depending on how that is happening. On Earth, it has happened both ways. If you think about the diversity on Earth, that diversity might be reflective of the greater diversity that's out in the cosmos. And you heard in that clip that we come from many stars, that humans have a long history of interaction with the star races. Humans have a long history of a long lineage of past connection, and so we have a multi-layered history on Earth that is just now starting to be understood. And when we start to understand that different history than we were taught, it can confront a lot of our fears. It can confront a lot of the limitation we have been sitting with as humans. It can confront our world view in a very, very big way. And I think it's important to just say that as you potentially go through that process of expanding your cosmic view to include other sentient life in this universe, and to understand a greater history of humanity, and to understand what some of the interaction with these ancient gods and goddesses was about, as you go through that process, it's important to remember what humans are capable of. And it's important to remember that we here in the Divine Lineage are doing work to bring back those capabilities to humans, because humans have the divine right to operate in supernatural, high divine states of consciousness. Humans have to prove their ability to do that well and get out of negativity to be able to do that. But that's what we're doing here. We're at a transition of eras on Earth where that is possible now again. And so that's part of what I've been called to do on this planet. It's part of why my soul is here, is to be a soul who came into a very limiting human experience to choose a body and a family and a lineage that would create a certain set of karmas, traumas, limitations that I had to work my way out of and transform to arrive back at a more supernatural state of being. So we'll talk more about that as time goes on. But let's keep going with the clips.
She says in Australia last year, she was reading and learning about the ET presence on the Earth and remote viewing. The next day she had an incident at the airport and passed out. Was this event somehow connected to her learning and acceptance of the ET presence?
Yes and no.
Can you explain that?
It was meant to teach about fear and to have no fear. And to ensure she could get home.
Has she learned that lesson about having no fear?
Almost.
Has she been fearful all her life?
There's been some.
And a lot of that fear, has that been because of things that have happened to her in this life or previous lives?
No, just this life. This place is full of fear.
Okay.
Her mother was full of fear.
Okay. She also says that when she was in Australia last year, she was contemplating changing careers. This year, when she received a message or thought, and she said it wasn't her own, but said your leadership will be needed. Where did that thought come from?
It was from family, and it was not time yet.
Okay. When will it be time?
It's soon. It's next year.
Okay. Does she know that internally?
She's ready.
Okay.
She's a little scared. It's time.
Okay. She also wants to know, was the Basher synchronicity from a few months ago a contact experience?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
She can be so stubborn. She needed to finish the documentary.
She's stubborn, huh? So, and what was the contact experience for? Was it to keep her from being stubborn or to acknowledge that she was?
Both. To show that it's real and to make her finish the learning.
Finish what?
To finish the learning. There was learning to be done.
Okay. Okay. Is she excited about learning and getting this done? Or is she apprehensive about it?
It's better. It's better than where we've been.
Okay. When you say we've been, who is we?
Part of the family watching. We've been with her.
How many are with her?
Small group.
Do you have a number?
5 or 6.
Okay. Can you name? Do you have a name?
No.
What are you supposed to be doing? Just watching her? Do you protect her or anything?
Supporting.
Okay.
Helping.
Mm-hmm. Does she have a guardian angel that watches over her?
We all do.
So you are the guardian angels, is that correct?
No.
Oh. So
I'm just going to pause and interject here. The therapist gets confused here. He thinks I was talking about angels. We're talking about two different things here, which I'll explain.
does she have a guardian angel?
Yes. We all have guardian angels.
Oh, okay, we all have one. How many does she have?
2.
Do you have a name for them?
No.
So everybody, even in this room, has guardian angels, is that correct? And they watch over everybody? What's the purpose of the guardian angels?
They're to guide and to help. Help with the mission. Help us not get off track.
So I'm talking about family, which we'll hear more about in the next clip. I think these are actually a little out of order. Star family referring to the ET beings who my soul is bonded with. And so the therapist got a little confused, thinking I was talking about some helpers in the spiritual realm, angels, where I'm clarifying here that both are true. Yeah, we've all got guardian angels, even the ETs. Every soul who comes into the creation apparently gets a set of angels. Okay, let's keep going.
Has she ever had contact with aliens or star ancestors in this lifetime?
Yes.
Can you describe what happened to her?
She's from there. So we've always.
Say again?
She's from there, so we've always been watching.
So she's had experience with aliens, is that correct?
No, just with us, with family.
What?
Family.
Okay. Well, wouldn't that be aliens?
It's part of the mission.
Okay. Okay. She said something about having some marks on her body. Is that correct? Where did they come from?
Check-ins.
Were they implants or anything?
No,
What were they?
just checking.
Checking.
Checking the body.
Okay. So somebody's checking it. Aliens is checking it, or family's checking it. Is that correct? Just to make sure of what?
We're completing.
Okay. Is she aware when this happens?
No,
Why not?
it would have been too scary.
Can you give her some sort of post-hypnotic suggestion so it won't scare her?
It's natural. It's out of love.
Okay. She wants to know if she've experienced lives off the earth. What kind of things has she experienced off of the earth?
She came from one in a ship.
Can you describe the ship?
Big.
When you're talking big, how big would that be?
Like really big, like city big.
Okay, so in that one, what we are hearing is that I'm connected to Star Family. He starts calling them aliens. I'm not responding to that because they don't like being called aliens. Like, that's a derogatory term. So, as humans, we need to start getting used to the idea of star family, star races, star lineages, star beings, and maybe more respectful terms. So that's what some of that back and forth was about. And then we'll hear a little more in this one.
Doesn't she do that already?
With some.
Say again?
With some, not with all.
Okay. And this is, she'll be getting an audio file of this so she'll understand what she needs to do. Is that correct? Okay.
What's being referred to there is that when you're in a deep state of trance, you don't always remember some of this, like what's coming out of me. The last half of this session was kind of blurry. I didn't remember some of it. So by getting these audio files and being able to play them back, it also triggers more aspects of your memory and your consciousness, which has continued to be true.
Is there any additional spiritual guidance that would be helpful for her at this time?
To be consistent with the practices. There's still inconsistency. She knows that's the way.
Okay. She does a lot of meditation, is that correct?
Not enough.
Okay, she needs to do it more, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Why is meditation so important?
It opens up the powers of the mind.
Okay. How long is she supposed to meditate?
At least 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes a day. Any particular time of the day?
Morning and evening. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. Why did she have a emotional reaction with reading Mary Rodwell and John Mack's books about the alien phenomenon?
Because she remembered home.
So what you're saying is she misses being home, is that correct?
Life felt kind of lonely until then.
Yeah, that is something that you can watch like you're watching a movie, okay? This has already happened. She misses home, she misses being on the ship, is that correct? Does she have lots of family and friends on the ship?
That's where they all are.
Okay.
There are two here.
Say again?
There are two here.
Okay, so that starts to get into explaining the soul group and the fact that there are souls out there I'm bonded with. And yeah, in the earlier part of this life, I felt very lonely. You know, I clearly had the ability to operate in this world and do it well. And yeah, I'd always been advanced, like I said, and doing a lot at a young age, a lot of responsibility and things at a young age, and it just all kind of came fluidly. It just was natural. Yet I felt very alone, and I felt somewhat depressed and a little confused about this planet, you know, and like what was going on here. I felt just, yeah, this major sense of disconnection. And I think most humans feel that to some degree anyway, because of our disconnection from source, because we've gone through this period of devolving essentially and getting sucked into negativity and when we get sucked into negativity, we get farther and farther and farther from source. And so that's already a thing, you know, for humans. But then you layer on top of that for my soul, that my soul most recently, like if you want to think of it this way, my most recent incarnation was out there. Now I've had a series of incarnations here on Earth. I came from that incarnation to do these. And then I'll go back there when I'm done with this series of incarnations. I'll go incarnate where I normally incarnate. And so my soul, you know, had and still does at times, you know, feel this deep, sense of missing home. And, you know, for my soul, home is not Earth. Like I feel like I'm visiting. It's a beautiful planet. I'm so glad to be here. It's awesome. But it's been a very interesting situation. You know, coming into a human body and brain, you know, that was wired for such limitation and going through the process of reawakening more of who I am and integrating that into this body, and then in doing the work to clear all of that distorted human programming that we've taken on, so that I can repair the human system to the state in which we can have, these sorts of more fluid interactions with other beings where we can operate in supernatural states of consciousness, where we have a more joyful experience, connected experience of reality. And so that's been my work in this lifetime, to be a person, be a human that that would go through that, but with a soul in this body that had basically already done that. I won't share in this entire episode because we're probably getting close to time here anyway. Everything else I have learned since this regression and everything else I have integrated. But suffice to say, it's been a very busy 4 years of doing that work and accessing more of my soul memories and where I'm really from, and how that can influence and impact the work that I'm doing here on Earth, and how, because of the history my soul has had, because of the beings my soul is connected with, who are also connected with the masters of this divine lineage, by the way, which you can learn about in a different podcast episode I'll link to below. Because of that connection, it does give me the ability to fill in some missing pieces of the puzzle from time to time. So I'm currently interested in that. I'm currently interested in putting the full puzzle back together. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, that this journey has been this exploration of finding all the scattered wisdom around the world and piecing it back together, and the practices that got scattered, because the technologies that we can utilize are not only to be found in the divine lineage. We got to utilize a variety of technologies to be able to transform the human system. And so I've been on this journey of understanding that, and testing it all on myself, and then receiving guidance, about which ones to put together to achieve some of these higher states of consciousness that are possible. And so I'm now, very fascinated by how this is evolving. It's been a very interesting process of, I'm a Gemini, so I have this kind of ability to hold paradoxes, to hold dual, sometimes conflicting points of view, and that's kind of happening in this life, because I have the human experience happening, but then I also have this greater part of myself that is very present now, that's very lucid, about the experience I'm having here. And so I laugh sometimes. I'll talk to Baba and Swami and like laugh about how strange it is to be this lucid in a human body but to also be having normal human experiences along with it. It's just been this, it's hard to explain. It's just been this very odd experience for my soul, and it's been incredible. I should also say, and I said this to someone in the Divine Lineage recently, as I've been chatting with folks, and as people have been asking me a little bit more, about these things and my experiences. And some of you are coming into your understanding of our connections with ETs, which is awesome. And I'm here for you if you have questions. I said to someone, the advanced civilizations in this galaxy have been supporting the divine lineage for a long time. Dare I say, the divine lineage is part of a much bigger mission. The divine lineage is an extremely important part of a much greater mission that has been playing out for millennia on Earth. The mission continues. It is not done. We'll talk more in a future episode, or maybe in some future classes, about the complications that have occurred on Earth and the extreme negativity that has ensued, and again, what role our ET friends or star family or advanced civilizations play or don't play in that, in rectifying or correcting the situation on Earth. There's one major loophole. When a planet is in trouble and a planet needs help, a planet needs help getting out of lower states of consciousness, and there's potential there for that to happen. There are rules in place. One of those rules is that advanced civilizations can't just go interact with lower civilizations. It's kind of like Star Trek in that regard, if you've seen that, where there's a non-interference policy, because every civilization, every person, every soul, every being has free will. We're all playing this game of life with free will. We're all creating with free will and learning about our creations. Humans are learning about their creations right now, and the creations have not been pretty in a lot of ways. We are learning about how we become more positive, spiritual creator beings. And because of that, because of this free will that exists, it's not allowed for advanced civilizations to come interfere directly with younger, lower civilizations, partially because of the level of consciousness people are at. You know, people on this planet have been at a level of consciousness over the last few thousand years that when they have interacted with advanced beings, they misunderstand what's going on. They think it's angels. They think they are gods and are to be worshipped. So humans have not yet been at a point where they can have a more sophisticated, equal kind of interaction with advanced civilizations. Our consciousness has not grown to the level where that's possible in a healthy way. And there's a lot of other complications on Earth with our religions and a lot of stuff that's made it very difficult for first contact to happen. So first contact is happening in a different way on this planet. First contact is happening by souls who have lived out there, choosing to come into limitation, choosing out of love to come incarnate. A lot of you have done that and you just don't remember. A lot of advanced souls on this planet right now are part of a greater mission to bring human consciousness into a new era, to help humans evolve their consciousness to a point where we can potentially become a galactic civilization, or at least just get things more balanced here on Earth. And so there are loopholes to these rules in our galaxy and universe. And one of the loopholes is that advanced souls, ascended masters, ET souls, ET level souls, they can choose to incarnate anywhere they want. There's free will in this universe. So some of us have chosen to incarnate on Earth to help out and to do work and to live the human experience, and even just through our own lived experience of that, shift consciousness. And you know, I said in a episode recently that just by having gone through all the transformation work, no matter what else I'm doing in the world, you know, my future, you know, generations, if I have a child, you know, and contribute to life on this planet in that way, that child is going to be free from a lot of the human limitation. That's one of our big missions right now, is getting the human population out of that state of limitation. That is not all going to happen in this one lifetime, for sure. But we are all contributing to that with the work that we're doing. And so the advanced civilizations have been working with the Earth-based divine lineage for a long time. I want to have another conversation at some point about the masters and Jesus, um, and maybe just offer some additional perspective on their experiences um, and their connection, with some of these other civilizations, because that's starting to become more clear for me, that this level of let's call it partnership, I guess, if you will, um, between teachers and guides on Earth and advanced civilizations has been a critical part of the work that has gone on to preserve spiritual knowledge. And this lineage is not the only one where that is occurring, but it's a big part of it. So I hope that was enlightening and interesting to you. It challenged me in a major way to own who I really am, to truly like allow that, because of how intense the programming is here on Earth. So just know that no matter what questions you're having, no matter what doubts come up, no matter what fears come up around these topics, know that that's because we've been programmed to not allow these ideas to be safe, right? They're so outside of what we've been taught. And we have a chance, we have an opportunity right now to rewrite the story, to rewrite the human story, and to gain a better understanding of ourselves. And it's also my understanding through personal experience now that by learning about these things, integrating those missing pieces of our history, viewing some of these historical characters maybe through a slightly different lens, it's part of our awakening process. It's part of our healing process. If you think about the fact that humans have had a very large part of their memory essentially blocked, right? Like if we've had a lot of our history mixed up and distorted, and even our understanding of spiritual concepts distorted, there's a huge part of us as humans that we've been missing. And when we're blocked from aspects of ourselves that are critical to our wholeness, we can't fully heal and become fully enlightened. So that is an incredibly important part of our enlightenment work, I think. And now again, as we think about enlightenment and this communion with God, really activating our and embodying our connection with source, like that doesn't necessarily involve ETs, right? Like they're also souls in bodies doing that, having their, working on their connection with source and embodying that. And so ultimately the process of enlightenment and transcendence is transcending all that too. However, it becomes difficult to get there if we've got a large part of ourselves that's been blocked, or even trauma related to the human collective experience that we've not healed and integrated for ourselves. So I think that's also part of why I wanted to share more of this today, because I recognize that for those who are on this journey of enlightenment, for those who are truly working to clear themselves of the human limited experience and transform that, gaining a better understanding of our history, gaining a better understanding of our connection with life in the universe is a big part of becoming whole again. And it's been a huge part of me becoming whole again, partially because of who my soul is, and where I've come from and what I have been used to. So if you're curious to go further in this exploration with me, if this piqued your interest and now you're like, wow, let's learn more, I'll link below to a few more episodes that might shed more light on what I've experienced. Since then, I've gone through a second regression since this one that I shared today that was incredibly profound. That one's going to stretch your mind a little more than this one did, okay? So if this one already stretched your mind, take some time to integrate before you listen to that one. Or don't listen to that one, whatever. But I'll link to it below. And in that one, we explore a childhood dream that I had, a recurring childhood dream of a red rose in space. And I have shared a little bit about that in some other episodes as it relates to the divine lineage, but that further explains some of the ET connection as well. So thank you for listening and being on this journey with me, opening your mind, opening your heart to new concepts, to these understandings, and letting me share my full self with you. It's not easy to share your full self anyway. And then you add something that is so quote unquote different, to the human experience. For those who have been watching the Chosen series, what did Jesus say in that? Get used to different. It's getting real different now. It's getting real supernatural now. So I just thank you for allowing this space to be today, for allowing me to share and bring this forward. I had shared these clips on the Star Family Wisdom channel a couple of years ago, so they're kind of buried down in the videos now. So I thought maybe it's time to bring these forward and just discuss a little bit more about who I am. Okay, I'll see you next time in our next episode. Bye for now.